my presentation is just an introduction to my talk day after tomorrow, which will be about the art of Her Excellency Shri Astari of Indonesia. She was the ambassador of Bulgaria. She was the ambassador of Indonesia in Bulgaria, Macedonia, and Albania between 2016 to 2020. So for 4 years, I worked with her, and the result of our cooperation was this book, Art of Diplomacy. So, because this is also good peace ambassadors, so the youngsters that are here, so I will introduce a diplomat also who was an artist, so artist ambassador. And she wrote this book, and the book was just interviews, because she became very famous, very active in Bulgaria, and I will tell you why. And she had everyday interviews. So in 4 years, I gathered all the interviews and edited them, and somehow we connected her art before to this book, and she called it Art of Diplomacy. Astari was the daughter of a populated family that you see the siblings. And when she was a child, she was in India. She was the daughter of the diplomat there. And after that, they moved to Burma. So in India, she taught Hinduism, and she went to Burma, and they were in a Buddhist land. When she went back, when the family went back to Indonesia, so they put her in a Catholic school, and she also learned about Christianity. I let her, she talks. I should inform you that Her Excellency Astari passed away last year, unfortunately. And so she had some talks that I put something here, so in Manabi, so you can hear from her who was she.
I asked my mother, what shall I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said. Hey, Sarah, whatever will be. The future's in the last to see.
So the future is not for us to see. When she was a child, she was asking her mother, what will happen? She said, nobody knows. And this girl, that after that, she went to London to study fashion design, and she was on the cover of lots of fashion magazines, very famous in Indonesia. And also she painted, and this is the painting, her paintings of her father and mother, that calls it still strong in my memory. So she became a professional artist. Her life was not easy. According to her, her life was not a walk in the park. There are a lot in her life that happened, and she would say she went rock bottom and came back. She survived it, but she came back with the gems of compassion and forgiveness. I will let her also talk again with you.
Each and every experience of life makes us ready for the next step. Maybe tomorrow will be another chapter of your life. In 2016, our president appointed me as the immediate ambassador to Bulgaria, Albania, North Macedonia. These countries are based on cultural heritage.
Can't hear.
Can you hear her?
No.
Oh, it's can you?
You can come and sit closer. Don't be afraid.
I will after that share it with you. So I will just explain. So she says that in 2016 she was appointed by her president to be the ambassador in these three countries. The three countries, she says, these Balkan countries, they are though in Western land, but they have Eastern soul. So when she came there and she got the mandate to become the ambassador, she had a different approach, and she used to call it cultural diplomacy. And what she did, she made lots of exhibitions about Indonesia, about her culture. In Indonesia, they have a concept that they call it unity in diversity. Because Indonesia is a very vast land. They have 16,000 islands, and they have lots of languages and different ethnicities. So this unity in diversity brings all of these people from different backgrounds under the same umbrella. And what she did, she came here to show the color of Asia and her land. So she made exhibitions, she was in the interviews, in the TVs, and every day she did something. For example, this is the batiks, the traditional dress. And this was always there for her to show who and how Indonesians are. And you can see people, she even made a museum. She put her own personal gold in a museum, in the National Museum, and said that this museum will stay. I will die, I will go. So this gold, I don't know to where it goes. So she put it there in Bulgaria. Now there is a corner for her with her museum. And she brought lots of people from Indonesia, famous artists, and she made fashion show every time she could. So unfortunately here we cannot listen to her because we don't have a...
Artists express their
And she says that artists express their political view in their art. So because she was also so much about women's rights. And her personal life, for people who wants to know, it's very inspiring what she went through, and after that she made it.
artists express their
And after that, so she introduced Indonesia, and one day she asked herself, what should I do for Asia? Because Asia is not only Indonesia, it's India, it's China, it's Iran, it's Arab lands, and all of that. So she made Asian festival and said, she writes in her book, and said, you know, they are talking about European Union, why we don't talk about Asian Union? So always the president used to come and start this Asian festival, and became very famous in that time. So people of Pakistan, India, Saudis, Iranians, Chinese, Japan, all of these people, they used to gather in one room, in one exhibition. And people around Europe, also in Balkans, used to come and see. So, so before, this photo shows the North Korean and the South Korean ambassador. So she brought even North Korea and South Korea together. It was just before, long before Donald Trump bring their presidency. And also, she was a Muslim. She was a Muslim woman, but very much also about the Japanese tradition. You can see two different photos of her here, how she is bringing her culture, and at the same time, how she is also in her prayers as a Muslim. And something also interesting about her in Bulgaria, because some of Muslim countries, they are not good with each other because of the nationalism. This nationalism was not in our land. It came from Europe. India was India. So this Pakistan and Bangladesh later, this Islamic land was Islamic Ummah. There was no Persian and Turks or Arabs and that. But after the collapse of these Ottoman empires, these countries now, they are there, and nationalism came and it became somehow it became a seed of division in the Islamic land, and also in India. The nationalism that it's in India also, it was not there. India was a land of tolerance about everybody. So something also good that I'll talk about it here is that all these Muslim countries that they had fight with each other, but for prayers, used to go to Indonesian embassy for the Eid and the celebration of Islamic festivities. And sometimes Imam was Turk, sometimes other countries. So, as always, they ask ambassadors, so what you did for business? She didn't work in this manner, but when the data comes, her bilateral trade between Bulgaria and Indonesia raised for 500%. And it shows that how cultural diplomacy works. And at the end of her mission, when she wanted to leave the country, because she was an artist, she made this portrait of the president and vice president and went to say goodbye. And also she gave something that went to the TVs and brought tears in the eyes of Bulgarians. Bulgarians have a national song. It's not a national song, but it is about the white cloud. And said, oh, white cloud, little white cloud, when you passed my village, did you see my beloved? Was she well? Did she miss me? Something like this. So she sang this song with Bulgarian language, that it is So this is for the new YPAs. This was an ambassador who said, everybody is an ambassador. Maybe you are not a diplomat, but you are an informal ambassador. If you are from Philippines or Brazil or from India or Iran, in any land you go, people will judge your land based on your behavior. And she also writes about these informal ambassadors in her Art of Diplomacy. And in the next session, after tomorrow, we can talk more about her art. It was an art for peace, for harmony, and for tolerance among the people. Thank you.
So we're very sorry, but she's passed away.
She passed away in Singapore last year. She was in Arizona for a long time for treatment, and she passed away because of cancer. But she was so much also a believer. As Rumi says, we are from the ocean, we go back to the ocean. We are from the heaven, we go back. So she went in peace. Her legacy is immense for Indonesia, as her writings and her art.
And the book Art of Diplomacy is available in English.
Yes, I can also share the PDF with any of you that you want it, and I have also. The book is published in Bulgarian, in Indonesian. She came back to Indonesia to publish the book in Indonesian language. And she said on 11 September, I will gather everybody for the book opening. And she went, and I was there, we prepared everything and the publications. On 11th of December, I meant 11th of December, everybody gathered, but for her funeral. And the book was there. Sorry, it is a sad story, but these are great people. As she said, my mother said, chase her off.
Thank you. We're looking forward to the next presentation.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Adelina, do you know the lady? She's from your home country?
Yes, I don't know. I only know Megawati. I don't know what her.
Yeah, Megawati was the daughter of Sukarno.
Yes.
She has also some writings about Megawati, when Megawati became
Is the
the...
president of Indonesia?
Yeah, she has in the book of Art of Diplomacy, there are lots of things about Megawati Sukarno. And also she has a painting about riding the bull. It's a lady on top of a bull, and so she made that painting for Megawati. Megawati is so kind.
This is my first time about her. Who I was only the Megawati, the president of Indonesia, for Jokowi.
By the way, if any of you know your AUSN history, the history of the university, the first graduation ceremony of American University of Sovereign Nations was held in Bandung, Indonesia. And if I tell you, I hope that some of you from Asia at least know the significance of Bandung. You can still go to the Asia Arab Summit Hall. Have you been there, Adelina?
Sorry?
Have you been to Bandung,
Yes.
to the Asia Africa Summit Hall? But
Yeah,
it's still preserved, the piece gone.
it's long time ago.
Nabi, you went there?
Yeah, I've been there
Yeah.
several times.
So that was our first graduation. Okay? It was chosen on purpose because of the history. So the history lesson, somebody want to share? President Suharto organized a meeting in 1955, I believe. It was the launch of the G77. the G77 is now a larger club because more countries in Africa became independent. And it was the beginning of a non-aligned movement. It was in the middle of a Cold War. So independent countries opposing to the United States, Soviet Union war, Cold War, established the G77. And you can go, when you go to Bandung, and the new high-speed railway is open between Jakarta and Bandung. Have you been on this?
Yes, sir.
It used to be quite a slow train, even though it's quite short. In fact, it's faster by the freeway. But it's the summit was there, and I organized a meeting, in fact, a human regional meeting of mayors of Asia, city mayors, on human rights in the Bandung Summit Hall some years ago. Before that, I'd organized this graduation of AUSN. So if you join AUSN, you should know the first graduation site, because on Saturday, some of you will graduate, but the first graduation was in the Asia-Africa Summit Hall in Bandung, in Indonesia, Adelina. So there you go. Indonesia is closely tied to AUSN. And because of the significance for the decolonization of the world, the beginning of the G77. It's a significant event. It was a very exciting event. So the legacy has been interesting for Indonesia. And Nabi, thank you so much for sharing it in the book. Who has some questions or comments for Nabi? And the message, of course, very important. You're all ambassadors.
Were there no books published earlier on that?
No. There are lots of writings about her in the magazines, and before she had different era of her life. Sometimes she was also a corporate wife with her first husband, so she was mostly involved in lots of business dealings and also occasions that was between the government and the foreign countries. So she was famous. She was also very close to Ibu Tini Suharto, the wife of Suharto that Darrell mentioned, and her mother was also close to Sukarno. Her father, they are a well-known family there, but there is something that sometimes when people are alive next to us, we don't appreciate their presence. But when they go, after that, we go to cry. Rumi has a verse that says that, "Oh friend, I know that tomorrow I will die and you will come and you kiss the stone on my tomb, but you just come today, come and kiss my face. I'm the same person." So sometimes we go to people that it is too late, and we don't appreciate them when they are alive.
Yes, my mother in Rumi's tradition always said, "Give me flowers when I'm alive, don't bring flowers to my grave." If you want to bring flowers, bring them from your garden, but bring them to me when I'm alive.
Yeah.
Don't bring them to my grave. So sometimes I give flowers for people. It's nice. Anybody else like to share the comments? Christine?
What is your role right now? What do you do? Kind of for...
I worked 4 years with Ambassador Astari on, because I'm also from Bulgaria, so she was our ambassador, so I work closely with her. And nowadays I am in Washington, D.C. I am preparing for my postdoctorate on mystical philosophy. I'm also graduated from Gajah Mada University, and I got my doctorate on religious studies, which is mostly it's about mystical philosophy of Islam. That it's also when we are talking about spirituality in this manner, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, all of them, they are the same. They are just the different aspects of the same truth.
Yes, so it's again actually the mysticism
peace, mystical Islam, mostly Sufism, they contributed a lot about it. Sometimes maybe people think that Islam went to the east and the west because of the sword, but it was not like that. The Sufis took Islam to different worlds. Even Indonesia, the first people who introduced Islam to Indonesia, they were Persians from Hamadan, they were Shia Sufis. So still this connection are there. And also Persians also even took Buddhism to China. These are interesting things. How Sufism, how this spirituality of the East and in Persia and India, they are close to each other. Even some of the philosophers of India, if you write them, they are mostly talking about Sufism because there is a lot between them, and their root is also goes back. Even this Neoplatonism, even the Plato himself in that traditions of before, they were interacted. There was interaction between Greeks, Persians, Indians, and all other traditions. And when you go in this field, you will find unity between all of these religions. And as a Sufi says, anybody who knocks at my door, do not ask about their religion and give them bread, because God already has given them soul. And so my bread is nothing. So they contributed a lot to the peace, and still they are very peaceful people.
In Scottsdale at AUSN, the first 5 years we had the buildings there, we had a dear Sufi monk who travels around America. I maybe need to see what he's doing nowadays. He was sympathetic to the Native Americans, and he did some Sufi dances for us, Sufi swirls. He was a very interesting monk. But what's the link between, how would you define Zoroastrianism? Is it still active, and is it how close is this to Hinduism and Hindu roots? Is it, or is it separate? Because you're talking about mystical Islam. Is that in between Zoroastrianism and Sunni Islam, or what do you think?
In social aspect of it, when Zoroastrians left Iran, because there was also intolerance, we cannot deny it, but they find a good place for them, and that was India. Always any group in the world, they feel suppressed, they would say, let's go to India. We are not sure that now under President Modi is the same, but in that time, the Parsi people were there. This Tata family, Suma knows that, Tata, Jamshid Tata, they were very rich billionaires of India. They established the industry there. They were Zoroastrians, they were Persians. And the king of Persia went to ask them to come back to Iran, Muhammad Reza Shah. They said no. And after 2-3 years, the revolution happened and the king himself ran away. So India always was a land for us, for people. Even the Baha'i faith, when you go to Delhi, you see that the beautiful lotus temple of the Baha'i faith, that they are not allowed in Iran or in most of Muslim countries. It's in Delhi. It's beautiful cultural heritage, actually. It's beautiful also architecture. So, but the Zoroastrian who comes to Sufism, it comes through the concept of light. Because for the Zoroastrians, fire is holy. Why is holy? It's not God, but it is something that always moves. So it's movement. Movement is life. It's hot. It is life. It is also, it gives light. So they call it the philosophy of light. So it comes, and we call it Falsafatul Ishraq, means the philosophy of illumination. It comes in Sufism. But in Hinduism, in Indian tradition, it will become more complex to see that how they influence each other. Because this is based on dualism, but Hinduism mostly it's about unity of God. Brahma is everywhere. and everything is God in that tradition. So Hinduism and Sufism, they are more similar than with Zoroastrianism. So when we are talking with our friends about Hinduism, we feel the same. It's the unity of God. Anything else I can? Thank you so much for your patience. It was